Hey, I'm kind of sad because this is the last of our Truth Matters videos for this series. Again, we've been looking at Christian faith, and maybe you stumbled onto this and it's, and you're like, wow, there's a whole bunch of these. And it really covers most of what's in Luther's Small Catechism, and again, how it's lined up in this book called My Christian Faith, trying to personalize it. That's what confirmation is. It's saying, look, this isn't just mom and dad, grandma and grandpa's church and faith and belief, but it's mine. And I want to take that next step and say, yes, this is something that is truly something that I embrace, that I believe. And I want to say that, like, if you're in youth confirmation and you're watching this, or if you're just kind of new to the faith and you're watching this, this isn't like a sense where you're done. Hey, we finished the last video. I watched all of them. I went through the whole book. I went through the catechism and I went through it. To me, these are the things that are giving us a framework to see everything. Right, so I totally think it's so important, and I know it's important. I know it's true because it's been my experience, and also the experience of so many people that I've talked to. Is that you should never stop learning. We should never stop looking at things that will strengthen our faith. So church is going to have Bible studies, right? There might be youth Bible studies, young adult Bible studies, might be just older adult Bible studies, whatever it is, wherever you are in your life, that you would say, hey, I want to get after that. I remember when I first came to faith, a long time ago, and I pray that this is your experience too. It's not going to be exactly the same, but this aspect of it, the excitement of what God is doing. To me, I had a totally wrong understanding of what the church was, of what Jesus was all about. He was just this historical figure to me. I would never have denied that he existed. I had gone to a church-run school from first grade to eighth grade. So I was taught about Easter. I was taught about, Christmas. It's about Jesus. He was born in a manger, right? And we sang Away in a Manger. And I knew the stories, but they were just kind of like stories. And they were probably maybe the most important stories, stories that you have respect for, and Jesus in there is someone that you will respect. But he wasn't a Lord to me. He wasn't a Savior to me. I didn't know that he died for me. I thought he died for people who were perfect, right? Because I was taught a concept of saints. And saints were people who were perfect. Saints were people where there was actual sort of scientific evidence that they were just on a next level. And what that happened was, and the problem with that thinking is that it disqualifies a whole bunch of people. And I'll just tell you my story. I was like, why should I even try? I'll never get to there. I'll never be them. They're the superstars, and so what they had was so far up there and so far away from what I could ever get to or attain that I was just like, yeah, whatever. And I sort of checked out, didn't care. But then I began to read the actual scriptures, the Bible. And I began to see that it's not about what I do. Because I was taught that you got to be good enough, keep trying. But it was never why. Why should you try? Why should you live a certain way? And when you read the Bible, it says, well, we strive to be holy, right? We strive to be God's kind of people because we are his people. He died to make us his own, to make us part of this thing called the church. It's a gift, right? It's something that he has done. It's a work that's already been accomplished. And I remember when I first realized that, it was like, wow, so that's what it is? And so now it wasn't just like, okay, I'm saved, so I can just go on and do whatever. But it was like, no, look at what he did for me. My life is different now. My values are different now. Who I am and the way I live my life is different now. In a sense, there's been an ever-increasing desire for me that God is putting in there all the time, that he's working on as I read the Bible, as I worship, as I go to church, and as I do all these things. he's constantly just growing in me this desire to know him more, to know what he's about more, to understand it more fully, and to tell as many people as I possibly can. And that's what our faith is. And so our last session here, our last video is about my Christian faith, your Christian faith. Not mine, but yours. What's your story? I want you to really think about that. See, at Christ Memorial at our church, we have all of our confirmation students do a testimony just to tell their story, their faith story. Like, how did you come to know, right? Like, I had people who told me about Jesus, people who cared enough to kind of come alongside me and let me know what he was about. And I want to know, like, what is your story? Like, who are the people that were so influential that God used? Because that's just so cool. Because when you look at the history of the church, and if you were to sit and talk with people, you would realize that that's how God works, through people. And so when you come to faith and when you know who Jesus is and you trust in him and you're going to live your life his way, you have a story to tell. And think about this. You might even be, and I pray it happens, that you'll be a part of someone else's story. That 20 years from now, someone will say, you know what? That person was my friend, and I asked them about, like, why do they do life differently, and what makes them tick, and why do they have that as a priority? Why is church such a big thing for them, and Jesus such their everything? And then they began to just lovingly tell me about it and tell me about him, and they shared with me their life and how life had changed. And you see, like, God working in you becomes part of how God is going to work in someone else. And that's how it works. And really for 2,000 years, and I think even before that, before Jesus, right, came, the people of God, like, that's how he works through us and our faith. And so what he does, he brings us together in this thing called the church. I want to read from 1 Corinthians chapter 12. He says, for just as the body, right, like your human body, it's got arms, legs, hands, feet, eyes, ears, and it has many members, but it's one, right? So there's only one of me, but there's all different parts of me, right, that you can see. You can see there's ears here, there's some eyes, there's a nose, there's a mouth, there's a beard, there's hair, there's 10 fingers, I think, right? There's a neck, there's arms, there's an elbow, right? And so forth and so on. And all of those things are attached. They all work together. My mind, the things you can't see inside, there's a whole bunch of stuff that God created. And he's saying that his church is the same way. We are members of the body. Though we are many, right? There's many of us in the church and we're all different, but we're one body. And so it is with Christ. Because the body doesn't consist of just one member, right? There's not only one part. You're not just an arm, but many. So what would happen if the foot would say, because I'm not a hand, I don't belong to the body? He says, that would not make it any less part of the body. And if the ear would say, well, hey, because I'm not an eye, I don't belong to the body, that would not make it any less a part of the body. Now, and listen to what he says and personalize this. And you are the body of Christ. And individually, you are members of it. So when we get together, we're not just Christ Memorial Lutheran Church. We're not just whatever church you happen to be a part of. We are the body of Christ. And so my church and your church and all the churches are the body. We are all the family of God, if you want to use that. I think that's really important for us to realize. That this isn't just about us. Someone once said that the church is the only organization, or one of the only organizations, that exists solely for the benefit, right, of the non-members, for people who have yet to become, right? So it's for the sake of people that don't know him. That's why we exist. Now again, we do things that bond us together. We do things that help us to grow intellectually, spiritually, right, and to stay mature, to stay connected. But it's for the sake of more people knowing about this and hearing about Jesus. It's not about making our our building bigger or our numbers grow. Although those are awesome things, right? Because if we have that happening, there's a pretty good chance, if we're keeping the focus on Jesus, that faith is growing. Okay, but we always want to be careful. We want the faith part to be the main part and the really thing that matters. That lives are being changed, that people's hearts are being changed, that they're growing, that they're knowing who Christ is. And so I want to ask you, like, what is where do you fit? Like, what's your plan to stay connected to God outside of this study, outside of these videos, outside of this time together? And on page 112, there's a great thing. It's called My Plan for Growing in the Faith. And it's just really, really important that we do that. We do this with our relationships, don't we? With family members. You're always hearing stories, more stories about your mom and dad, your sisters, right? When you get married, you'll right, if you're married, it's your husband or wife, that relationship is constantly growing, and it's growing because you're asking, tell me more about how you grew up. Tell me more about those experiences, right? Tell me more about your church thing when you were growing up. And then you learn and you grow and you grow. And we do that with God. We do that with our life in Him. So what are the things you want to do? Like let's get a plan. What's next in your worship life, right? Like how are you going to see church? Is it going to be something that's so important that you want to get involved? How about every day in terms of reading the Bible? There's Bible apps. I would encourage you. There's the YouVersion Bible app on any platform. Download it. You have it on your phone, right? And a lot of us have our phones with us all the time. And I use that thing every day, multiple times, if it's right there. I can just pull it up. I can look up whatever verse and do that. They even have reading plans in a lot of those. And what that is, that's an actual plan. And you can go through the Bible in a year, and it'll give you different parts to read every day. There's shorter ones that are like maybe 3 days. Some of them are 7 days. Some of them are 40 days. And it'll just say, okay, here's a little writing about something, something to inspire you or to help you to understand it. But then there's just some straight up Bible reading. So I would really strongly recommend getting into something like that. A weekly Bible study. And it doesn't have to be even something that's like very organized. I would strongly recommend at a church, maybe your youth people have something, but maybe start something in addition to that, or whatever works for you. Get together with somebody and talk about the Bible. What does it mean to you? Right? Get that input. Struggle together. It's an awesome thing. But we really want to do that. Right? Praying. Like, what does my prayer life look like? What do I want it to look like? How do I want to serve together with my family and bring this hope and be a witness to the world, both with my family and with my church? And how can I serve my community? See, a lot of times we think, being a Christian, it's your service in the church, right? But that is important. And I want to encourage you, there's a lot of things that you can do. Like at our church and in every church, that things don't happen without a whole bunch of people coming together and doing various things. Whether it's tech things, whether it's helping set up communion, whether it's help greeting people or showing people where they can, how to navigate the service, or just being helpful. But it's not just at the church building on Sunday. It's every day, all the time. It's when you're at school. It's when you're at work. How do you have that mindset that says, I'm on a mission even here? I'm part of the church even here. Because people know that I go to church. And how cool would it be if they not only knew that I went to church, but they saw it? Beyond me just getting out of my car and going into the building. But what if they saw that what I learned in that building got into me? That it got into me. Quite often, when somebody starts acting differently, and it's typically, it could be a bad thing, it could be bad behavior or good behavior, but often we'll say, what's gotten into you? Because maybe it's somebody who's usually grumpy and they're just being really kind of happy and jovial, or maybe the opposite. Maybe they're usually like really chill and fun, and now they're just mean, and they're like, whoa, what happened? What got into you? Something changed, right? So my prayer with all of this is that we continue learning, continue growing, so that people will look at us and go, man, what's gotten into him? In a good way. Wow, how does he get joy like that? How does he get peace like that? Like how is he able to weather like these horrible things that are happening to him or her? And how is she able to deal with it? And the answer is Jesus. And then that story is told, right? That witness is shown. That light, it just shines. All right, so God's peace to you as you continue on this journey of faith. And I'm just praying that your faith's going to grow. You're going to continue to just every day just be really excited to learn more about Jesus. All right, take care, and God's peace to you.